What if I told you the deadliest fashion item in history wasn't a weapon, but a shoe? Not a sword, not a gun, a heel. Today, high heels symbolize beauty, confidence, and luxury. Millions wear them every day. But high heels were never originally made for fashion. They were made for war. Centuries ago, Persian cavalry warriors used heels to lock into stirrups while shooting arrows on horseback. The design helped soldiers stay balanced during battle. Over time, that military invention transformed into a global fashion symbol connected to power, class, seduction, and status. Kings wore them. Aristocrats obsessed over them. Doctors warned against them. And fashion brands turned them into billion-dollar products. The stranger heels became, the more luxurious they looked, because painful fashion signaled wealth. If someone could barely walk in their shoes, society assumed they didn't need to work. In this documentary, we'll uncover the hidden history of high heels. From Persian battlefields, to royal European courts, to Hollywood and modern luxury fashion. By the end, you'll realize this isn't just the history of a shoe. It's the history of status itself. The first high heels didn't appear in fashion stores. They appeared on battlefields. In ancient Persia, cavalry warriors needed stability while riding horses and firing arrows. To solve that problem, they wore shoes with raised heels that locked into stirrups. The heels stopped the foot from sliding forward during combat. In other words, heels were military technology, not beauty, not fashion, war equipment. These cavalry soldiers were wealthy and respected. So heels slowly became symbols of power and elite status. Then Persian diplomats introduced their culture to Europe during the 1500s and 1600s. European nobles became obsessed with Persian fashion, and the heels came with it. Soon, rich men across Europe started wearing elevated shoes to appear powerful and aristocratic. The less practical the shoes became, the more elite they looked. Because fashion among the wealthy has never been about usefulness. It's about proving you're above ordinary work. And nobody embraced that idea more than King Louis XIV of France, the man who transformed high heels into royal political symbols. If you traveled to Europe in the 1600s, one thing would shock modern audiences. Powerful men proudly wore high heels. Kings, nobles, military officers, and nobody considered it feminine. In fact, heels represented power and dominance. The most famous heel wearer was King Louis XIV of France. Known as the Sun King, Louis used fashion to display superiority. He wore extravagant clothing, giant wigs, and iconic red heels. The red color symbolized wealth because red dye was extremely expensive. Eventually, Louis even restricted red heels to members of his royal court. Your shoes literally showed your social rank. Soon, aristocrats across Europe copied him. Men competed through fashion, higher heels, brighter fabrics, more decoration. At the time, elite men often dressed more extravagantly than women. But during the 1700s, society started changing. People began valuing practicality and simplicity instead of aristocratic excess. Men slowly abandoned heels. Women inherited them. And once heels became associated mainly with women, society completely changed their meaning. The same shoe that once symbolized masculine military power became linked to beauty and femininity. By the 18th and 19th centuries, high heels were increasingly associated with women's fashion. But why? Why did this particular shoe survive? While so many historical fashion trends disappeared, the answer lies in human psychology. Heels physically change the way the body moves. When someone wears high heels, their posture shifts automatically. The back arches, the chest lifts, the hips tilt forward. Steps become shorter and more controlled. Fashion designers and advertisers later amplified these effects, presenting heels as tools of elegance and attractiveness. But there was another reason heels remained powerful. Suffering itself became fashionable. Throughout history, upper classes often wore impractical clothing to demonstrate wealth. Corsets restricted breathing, long dresses limited movement, white clothing stained easily, tiny shoes damaged feet, and heels caused pain. But that pain communicated something important. I don't need to perform physical labor. If someone could spend hours wearing uncomfortable shoes, society assumed they belonged to a higher social class. This pattern appears across cultures repeatedly. In ancient China, foot binding transformed painfully small feet into symbols of beauty and status. In Europe, aristocrats wore powdered wigs despite discomfort. Victorian fashion restricted movement so heavily some women fainted regularly. Luxury often required inconvenience, and heels fit perfectly into that tradition. By the late 1800s, industrialization changed fashion forever. Factories made shoes cheaper and more accessible. Middle-class consumers could suddenly imitate aristocratic style. For the first time, heels became mass fashion. Then Hollywood arrived, and everything accelerated. Film studios discovered heels looked visually striking on camera. Actresses appeared taller, more glamorous, and more elegant under studio lighting. Cinema transformed heels into fantasy. Audiences didn't just watch movies, they watched idealized versions of beauty. Soon, magazines, advertisements, and celebrities pushed heel culture worldwide. The stiletto heel emerged during the 1950s, supported by new steel reinforcement technology. Thin, sharp, dramatically tall heels became symbols of sophistication and sexuality. But doctors began warning about serious physical consequences: foot injuries, back pain, joint problems, balance issues, long-term posture damage. Despite this, heels only became more popular. Because fashion doesn't operate logically, it operates emotionally. People rarely buy fashion only for comfort. They buy identity, status, confidence, transformation, and heels promised all of it. By the late 20th century, the shoe had become something larger than fashion, a cultural symbol. Some viewed heels as empowering, and that debate would explode during modern feminist movements. Because suddenly society faced a difficult question: are high heels a symbol of freedom or control? And the answer depends entirely on who you ask. Few fashion items have created more debate than high heels. For some people, heels represent confidence, beauty, and personal choice. For others, they symbolize unrealistic beauty standards and social pressure. And both sides have powerful arguments. During the 1960s and 1970s, feminist movements challenged traditional expectations placed on women. Activists questioned why society demanded fashion in the name of attractiveness. High heels became part of that discussion. Critics argued that heels limited movement, caused health problems, and forced women to prioritize appearance over comfort. Some feminists viewed them as tools designed around the male gaze, fashion encouraging women to modify their bodies to fit social expectations. At protests, women symbolically rejected restrictive beauty products, including uncomfortable shoes. But the conversation was never simple, because many women genuinely enjoyed wearing heels. Some described them as empowering. Others loved the confidence boost. Many associated heels with professionalism, elegance, or self-expression. Over time, the debate evolved. Instead of asking whether heels were inherently good or bad, people started asking a different question: who gets to choose? If someone freely enjoys heels, is that empowerment? Or are their preferences still shaped by cultural pressure? Even workplaces became battlegrounds. Some companies unofficially expected female employees to wear heels for professional appearances. In several countries, women protested dress codes requiring uncomfortable footwear. Meanwhile, fashion brands continued marketing heels as symbols of success and desirability. Celebrities amplified the trend. red carpets, music videos, luxury advertising, social media influencers. The stiletto became part of modern celebrity culture. And then came another unexpected twist in fashion history. Men started wearing heels again. Not exactly like the aristocrats of the 1600s, but close. Musicians, performers, designers, and fashion-forward celebrities began experimenting with elevated footwear. Artists like Prince, David Bowie, and later modern fashion icons challenged traditional gender expectations through clothing. Suddenly, heels once again became connected to identity and self-expression beyond traditional norms. Fashion history had come full circle. The same shoe that started with Persian male warriors became feminine fashion, then partially returned into male celebrity culture centuries later, which reveals something fascinating. Fashion meanings are never permanent. Society constantly reinvents them. And today, heels exist in a strange cultural position. They're criticized, celebrated, mocked, admired, rejected, desired, all at the same time. Because heels were never just shoes. They became mirrors reflecting society's beliefs about beauty, power, gender, and status. And nowhere is that more obvious than inside the billion-dollar luxury industry that turned heels into modern icons.